Okay, hello everyone. My name's Kaylee Porter, and I look forward to giving my talk on Anne Elizabeth Baker. So, Anne Elizabeth Baker, Words, Stones, and Poetry. I'm going to open with a quote from Anne herself from the beginning, from the preface of her first book. I twine the hope to be remembered in my line, with my land's language, by no ere they fade away, the words and sports of yesterday. These words, written by Anne Baker in the preface to her Glossary of Northamptonshire words and phrases, beautifully captures her hope that her life and work would leave a lasting impression. Yet, despite her significant contribution, Anne Baker remains an often overlooked figure in Northamptonshire's history. Anne Baker was not just a woman of her time, she was a woman far ahead of it. Born in 1786, she was a linguist, a restorer, and supporter of historical scholarship. Her work spanned multiple disciplines, reflecting a deep dedication to preserving both the tangible and intangible heritage of Northamptonshire. Anne's achievements are remarkable. She painstakingly compiled the Glossary of Northamptonshire words and phrases, published in 1854, documenting over 5,000 local dialectic terms. She proudly noted that her glossary included more than 2,000 words and phrases not found in any previous publication. It remains one of the most comprehensive dialectic studies of its time. She also played a vital role in supporting her brother George Baker in his monumental History and Antiquities of the County of Northampton. This ambitious project was published in parts over a span of decades, starting in 1822 and finishing in 1841. Anne contributed to this work by assisting with field research, creating precise sketches, and providing logistic and we hope moral support. Despite their dedication, the financial burden of the project forced George to sell his library in 1842. Anne's legacy also includes her pivotal role in restoring the Norman carvings of St. Peter's Church here in Northampton. So, how can we better understand Anne Baker's life and achievements? Over the next 20 minutes, I'll explore her story, her scholarship, and her collaboration with figures such as her brother George Baker and the poet John Clare. Together, they worked in preserving the rich cultural tapestry of Northamptonshire and leaving us a legacy that we can continue to celebrate today. In 1823, St. Peter's Church was the shadow of the architectural gem we admire today. Its intricate Norman carvings had been hidden under layers of plaster, and the church had fallen into neglect. This is when Anne Baker's restoration journey began. Over the course of 11 years, from 1823 to 1834, Anne Baker dedicated herself uncovering the church's hidden Norman features using a simple boning knife. She painstakingly removed the plaster by hand, revealing carvings that had been concealed for centuries. These carvings included intricate scroll work, foliage, birds and beasts, and remarkable details that brought the church's Norman heritage to life. Anne's work wasn't just physically demanding, it must have been a labour of love. The meticulous care she applied, ensuring these carvings were preserved for future generations. Her efforts were described as pioneering during a time when historical preservation wasn't yet widely valued. Anne's work preserved these key features, and the efforts directly influenced the larger scale restoration led by Sir George Gilbert Scott, building on Anne Baker's foundational work in uncovering the Norman carvings, restoring St. Peter's Church, leading to the restoration in 1850 to 1851. His work included replacing the flat roof with a striking oak timbered design featuring ornamental king post, restoring the west wing to its original Norman form, adding a sacrium built on the old foundations, and ensuring the interior flooring, seating, and layout was updated to reflect historical integrity and the need of worshippers. Anne's restoration work at St. Peter's was just one example of her contribution to Northamptonshire heritage, and her commitment to preserving history extended beyond architecture, as we can see in her work documenting local dialects and supporting her brother George Baker's historical research. Anne Baker's contributions to the history and antiquities of the county of Northampton are overshadowed by her brother George Baker's more visible role, yet her involvement was vital. Known for her meticulous nature and artistic skills, Anne's efforts underpinned much of the project's success. While George's dedication earned him the nickname the Accurate Baker, it was Anne's invaluable contributions that also ensured the project's depth and richness. George Baker was a historian and an antiquarian dedicated to documenting the history of Northamptonshire. His History of Antiquities of the County of Northampton aimed to be a comprehensive record of the county's history, including manners, geology, natural history, and notable figures. The project had begun in 1850 and its first part was published in 1822. It took over 2 decades to produce 1/4 of the planned work, with its publication in 1830, 1836, and partial completion in 1841. George conducted meticulous research, visiting parishes, sending questionnaires to clergy, and indexing findings. However, the project's ambitions proved costly and exhausting, eventually forcing him to sell his library in 1842. Despite these challenges, George's work remains a cornerstone of local history, and the collections were later deposited at the Bodleian Library. By 1842, the immense cost of the project forced George to sell his library. Despite the setback, and supported both practical and emotional, ensured the work continued as far as possible. 1854, Anne Baker published her Glossary of Northamptonshire Words and Phrases. This 2-volume work is a contribution to the study of regional dialects, documenting over 5,000 local words and expressions. Anne's glossary is more than a linguistic record, it is a cultural preservation project. It captures the essence of rural Northamptonshire life, recording the language of quarrymen, our agricultural workers, and everyday people. For example, we can see some examples from her book. Mully, to bellow as a cow. A mully cow, the name used by and 2 children for a cow. One of the unusual persons to induce a reluctant child to walk in a field. Come on, let us go and see the mully cow. And other such examples. Anne's preface reveals her meticulous approach. She wrote, I have spared no pains to ascend and define the precise meanings from printed authors and especially early poets and dramatists. Her annotations connect dialectic terms to works by literary giants like Shakespeare and Chaucer, adding depth and historical context to the glossary. To bring the glossary to life, Anne saw over 180 subscribers to fund their publication, a subscription model that had previously been successfully used by her brother. Her subscribers include prominent figures such as Sir Charles George Young, the Garter of the King of Arms, Sir Frederick Madden, keeper of the manuscripts of the British Museum, Sir Charles Edmund Isham, a Northamptonshire landowner and historian, and the Earl Spencer, who had ordered 5 copies. Their support reflects Anne's standing as a respected scholar in her field. Anne Baker's glossary received widespread acclaim at the time, praised by local and national publications for its originality and depth. The press highlights the Manchester Daily Examiner described, we must only say that Miss Baker appears to have been particularly qualified by a nature for her task and by circumstances to have an unusual opportunity for procuring it. The Brighton Gazette, we have pursued the glossary with a particular interest, not only for its talent displayed by the authoress, but also for its actual and intrinsic merit. Every page exhibits considerable archaeological knowledge and extensive research. This work has not been a labour of a year or 2, but more than half a lifetime. Despite the praise Anne Baker received for her work, her legacy has been overshadowed by her brother George's Baker's more prominent recognition. A clear example of this would have been the disparity that can be seen in the Dictionary of the National Biography. Anne's entry spans just 142 words and is briefly acknowledged as her extensive but is acknowledged as an extensive knowledge of the antiquarian subject. However, George's entry spans over 331 words. It provides a more comprehensive account of his contributions, highlights his role as a leading figure. The imbalance reflects the historians call the Matilda effect, a phenomenon where women's contributions are systematically undervalued or attributed to men. Coined by the historian Margaret W. Rostier in 1993, the term highlights how women's intellectual labour is overlooked even when it is a foundational. Anne Baker's story echoes another local experience, Rosalind Franklin, the brilliant molecular biologist whose work was central to the discovery of a DNA double helix structure. Franklin's X-ray diffraction images were pivotal, yet Watson, Crick and Wilkins received the 1962 Nobel Prize for the discovery, while Franklin's contributions largely remained unacknowledged at the time. Both Franklin and Baker exemplify how historical narratives have often marginalised women, leading their legacy to be undervalued. For Anne, her meticulous fieldwork, artistic contribution, and organisation skills were integral to the success of her work and George's, yet it's often been framed that she is assistant rather than a collaborator. By revisiting these stories, we can ensure that Anne Baker's contribution are given the recognition they deserve, placing her alongside Northamptonshire's most important historical figures. Anne's glossary remains a vital resource for understanding the language of 19th century Northamptonshire. Her dedication to preserving regional dialects ensures that these words and the stories they tell can continue to be heard. Anne's passion for preserving local culture also connected her to the literary world. One of the most notable intersections was her collaboration with the poet John Clare, whose contribution to her glossary added a unique artistic dimension. Let's explore that next. One of the most fascinating rediscoveries about Anne Baker's Glossary of Northamptonshire is her connection with the renowned Northamptonshire poet John Clare. This collaboration was brought to light through press mentions of her glossary. The Brighton Gazette noted how Anne incorporated Clare's poetry to illustrate local dialects. This collaboration highlighted not only their shared appreciation for Northamptonshire's culture, but also Anne Baker's ability to bring together the academic and the artistic. We can see a short description about who John Clare is. John Clare, often called the peasant poet, was one of the most authentic voices of the 19th century rural England. Born in 1793 in Hepstone, Northamptonshire, Clare grew up in a farming family, working as a labourer while developing his poetic talents. He captures the essence of rural life, its landscapes and tradition and dialects, and reflects a deep love for the land and the poetry. Clare's dedication to documenting disappearing culture and dialects made him an ideal collaborator for Anne Baker. His poetry and her glossary share a common mission to preserve Northamptonshire's cultural heritage at a time of rapid change. Anne Baker's glossary includes a poem by Clare celebrating the tradition of May Days. Written specifically for the glossary, it paints a vivid picture of rural celebrations. It is quite a long poem, so I will just read the first couple of stanzas, if that's okay. How beautiful May, and its morning comes in. The song of the maidens, you hear them begin to sing the old ballads while cowslips they pull. With the dew of the morning fills many pips full. The closes are spangled with cowslip like gold. Girls cram their aprons with baskets can hold, and still gather on to the heat of the day till they force off and throw the last handful away. Then beneath the old hawthorn they sit one and all, and make them May garlands and round cuckaball of cowslips and blossoms so showy and sweet, and laugh when they think the swains they shall meet. The collaboration between Anne Baker and John Clare underscores their shared commitment to preserving the traditions and dialects of Northamptonshire at a time when industrialisation was reshaping rural England. Their work highlights the importance of documenting local languages and customs before they disappeared. By including Clare's poetry, Baker elevated her glossary beyond linguistic resource. It became a cultural artifact that bridges theology and literature. Its connection also attracted literary and historical interest, ensuring her work resonates with a broader audience. The rediscovery of Anne Baker's collaboration with John Clare enriches our understanding of her work. It shows her ability to connect the scholarly and the artistic, positions her both culturally a historian and a preserver of Northamptonshire heritage. Together, Baker and Clare's legacy have continued to illuminate the voices, words, and traditions of 19th century rural England. And as we come to a close of Anne Baker's story, her legacy reminds us of the profound impact one individual can have on preserving the identity of a community. Her work speaks not only of her intellectual and dedication, but also her deep love of Northamptonshire history and culture. Anne's achievements are remarkable. Through her glossary and her capture of over 5,000 words and 2,000 unique ones, many of these vanishing in the face of rapid social change. Her restoration of St. Peter's Church, revealing the intricate Norman carvings that might have otherwise been lost to time, ensuring that the church's beauty would inspire future generations, and her collaboration with John Clare, showcasing her ability to bridge the scholarly and artistics and to celebrate the traditions and language of rural life. Despite the changes she faced at the bias of her time, Anne's contributions continue to resonate with us down the ages. To conclude, I would like to leave you with Anne Baker's own word from her preface of her glossary. "'Tis ended, but my hopes and fears begin, nor can I imput as a sin in me to wish it favour." I think these lines reflect her vulnerability and hope that her work would be valued and remembered. And today we reflect on her life. Let us recognise the lasting imprint she has left on Northamptonshire heritage. Thank you very much.